Esse podcast é um oferecimento de Samsung Galaxy AI. E sabe o que mais ele te oferece? Que tal um intérprete em tempo real na palma das suas mãos para você nunca mais ter problemas em viagens ou reuniões? E falando em viagens, não precisa mais ficar com aquela foto torta. Com a câmera aprimorada, você deixa sua foto genial sem ter que baixar outros apps. Tem tanta coisa que o Samsung Galaxy AI pode fazer por você. Clica aí no banner para descobrir o que. Galaxy AI, a inteligência artificial nas suas mãos.
So my next guest, let me tell you about him. When he ran for governor in the state of Florida, was a healthcare executive, and he really, and I want to get into this with him on stage if you're not familiar with the story, is the epitome of the American dream. Rose to be a healthcare executive in this country, ran for governor in the state of Florida, and every single conservative out there, I think, was for his opponent. And a buddy of mine reached out to me and was like, look, they're trashing this guy. Here's his story. Can you at least throw a kind word his way? And I was like, how are we as Republicans not supporting a guy like this and his background against a career politician at the time? And thankfully, he got elected governor of the state of Florida. And at our fourth gathering, we actually went to Jacksonville, and he hosted us and threw a party on a boat on the river in Jacksonville. And then got elected to the United States Senate, where he has been one of the leading conservative voices in the United States Senate for not just like conservatism of the right, but just plain common sense. And it's a plain common sense that came from his upbringing. And again, like the epitome of the American dream, I am so delighted that he could come this year and be on stage with me. The senator, former governor, the state of Florida, Rick Scott.
You're probably the only nice word anybody said about me in that primary.
You say that about your first campaign for governor, and really, it was
brutal.
I'll tell you, it was my friend Greg Mueller who reached out to me, and he was like, you've got to look at this guy's biography. Will you please tell people about your upbringing?
Well, I'm blessed. So I was born to a single mom, and I was living in public housing. She remarried to my adopted dad, who actually was a war hero. There's only 3,000 Americans that did all 4 combat jumps with the 82nd Airborne. He did that and fought in the Battle of the Bulge and came back. He was a truck driver. So he told me the Germans were bad, the foxholes were bad, the food was bad, so I joined the Navy. So I had no Germans, no foxholes, the food was bad. But that life, at that point, when you grew up in this country, your mom could legitimately tell you, it doesn't matter how poor you are, you can be anything. And unfortunately, they are making it very difficult for people. And now with this inflation and everything, if you're poor in this country, it's tough. I mean, they've made it pretty darn difficult for people.
They have.
But I think it's a good background. I got married when we were 19, so I have 7 grandkids. So if they're older than 7, the first thing I say to them when I see them is, you're unemployed. I mean, what's the deal? You're not making any money for the family? I said, when I was 7, I threw newspapers, I cut grass, I did all sorts of stuff. What are you doing? And they look at me like, Grandpa, nobody does this. I said, well, you should.
We had the captain here yesterday running for the race in Nevada, and he said when he was 10, his dad got him a catalog for West Point when he was 10. And I'm sitting here as he's saying this thinking, my God, I got my son a catalog for Lego when he was 10. I'm clearly falling down.
I'm taking all my grandkids to the academies. So last year I took them all to the Navy Academy. I have to start there, right? And so this year I'm hoping to go. We're going to go to West Point. The nicest thing I get to do in my job is nominate 10 people for each of the academies. If you want to feel good about the future, go talk to these kids. In Florida, we have a big program. We have 550 applicants, and this coming year, I get to nominate 15. And then we've been able to get quite a few in. The hardest university in this country to get into is the Air Force Academy. That's actually the hardest. Harder than MIT.
It's funny you say that. I've got a friend whose son wants to apply for the Air Force Academy. I'm like, good luck, kid.
Move to Florida.
Good luck.
I'll help him.
Yeah. We kind of lost our good Republican senators up here. We're working to get them back.
Is it hard to believe? I mean, I just think, how could we lose in Georgia 2 races?
Yeah. Yes. Those are bad memories, but we can work. We got a future to talk about here in the state.
But you have a great governor.
Yes.
Is busting his butt. So,
we do. I want to talk about your transition first from governor to Senate. So how wild does it go from the executive branch to the federal legislative branch?
here's a way to think about it. Bill Murray said if he had to do it all over again, when he was a kid, he wanted to be rich and famous. He said, I'll try the rich first and see if I need famous. In this way, be the mayor, the governor, or the president first, and if you need the Senate, do that. Because it's a totally different job. So if you're in the executive branch, you actually, you can actually get something done. It's so hard in the Senate. Now it shouldn't be. It's just the way it's set up. But it's been hard. Why do we have $35 trillion worth of debt? Why do we have an open border? Why can't we balance the budget? Do you realize who passes the budget? Congress. Everybody wants to blast the president. Congress passed the budget. Oh no, we don't. I'm on budget. We don't have budget meetings. We do spending bills, okay, with bunches of earmarks. So it's an interesting transition. Here's how I thought about life. Whatever I was doing, where I was building a business, whatever, I'm here, I got to get to here. What are the things in the middle? To get where we need to go in the Senate and the House, we've just got to, not the House so much, but the Senate, we got to change how we operate. We don't do bills through committee. I mean, the bills are done by McConnell and Schumer. They decide what the bills are. And so if you think they are great at doing the bills, then it's great. If you think maybe you have an idea, not a great deal. We don't do amendment votes because we don't go through a committee. And then on the floor, we don't do amendments. So it's either they pick the bills, they put them on the floor, no amendments, up or down. Here's the next thing we're going to do. They're going to say, oh, we worked our butts off. We just couldn't get the budget done. No budget meetings, but anyway, so at the end of September, they're going to say, we're going to have to do a continuing resolution. And they're going to say, oh, we need to give ourselves a little bit of time. So guess when they'll do it? Let's do it right before Christmas. So what they'll do is right before Christmas, they'll give us a bill. Here's what they did last year. At Christmas, I think, was on Monday. Tuesday morning at 1:30 in the morning, they gave us a bill. There's like $1.2 or $1.3 trillion, 8,000 earmarks, and they wanted to vote on it at 9 o'clock in the morning. Nobody's read it. And so that's why we just keep borrowing more money. So it's disgusting. I tell people, I represent Florida, right? If I can't talk you into my vote, what I believe in, that's my problem. If I don't even get a vote, that's leadership's problem.
It does seem like one of the greatest critiques of the Senate right now is it's supposed to be, as Senator McConnell mentioned yesterday, George Washington's line of letting the tea be in the saucer to cool down, slow down the House's temperament. But at the same time, there is a real problem, seems like, and I've heard this for years from senators, that you come to Washington, you think I'm one of 100 senators, I can get something done. It's like, well, the committees don't write legislation, the leadership rushes it out to the floor, the amendment tree is filled immediately, so no one can even offer amendments. I mean, how do you get the Senate to actually go back to being the Senate?
So I ran last cycle. I'm the only person that's ever run against McConnell. I ran at the end of the 22 cycle. I didn't win, but I ran on, we should not do a bill on the Senate floor that didn't go through committee. We shouldn't. We don't have to. Why would we do it? And then on the Senate floor, we should have, if there's people want 100 amendments, have it. That's what I came up there to vote. If I can't talk people into it, the only committee I'm on that actually does that well is Armed Services. We'll have, we did the bill in June. We do Armed Services bill every year. We've done it for 60 plus years. We will have 100 amendments, and we will go for 3 or 4 days. I think this year, I think it was faster, it was 2 days. And we will, I got to pitch my amendments and win or lose. Some I won, some I lost. But then, that's the way it's supposed to be. And then next year, if I can't get it done this year, then I'll start working on who didn't I get to vote for it, then I'll get it in next year. And then what we ought to be able to do is on the Senate floor, if somebody doesn't like something that's in there, or I couldn't get my bill passed to the committee, I ought to have the right to do it. But no, this is all set up for two people to make the decision. They're not bad people. It's just, it's not because McConnell and Schumer are bad people. That's just how they've set it up. So it's going to change. People are mad. So there's an election. So there's 3 of us running to be the Republican leader. Thune's running, Cornyn's running, I'm running, and my platform is simple. So I'm a business guy. Everybody who hasn't been in business, here's what they all think. Business people are dictators. You can dictate yourself, and that's about it if you're in business, right? You can't do it in your marriage either. That doesn't usually work. So what you have to do is you have to bring people together. And what you do in business, when I was 40, I had 285,000 employees. And probably 99% of them knew way more about the industry than I did. I was running the biggest hospital company. Even though I'd never run a hospital, I had 135 surgery centers, 343 hospitals. I'd never run any of those, but I knew how to run a company. And the way we succeeded is we brought the smartest people together, we met, we made a decision together. Very rarely did I have to make the final decision. And the way the Senate works is we'll have a meeting like that, but we know what the consensus is, but at the end, it's just one person makes the decision. It makes no sense. You don't get the best talent. So I've run on, we need to work as a consensus. We need to work together. Our bills go through committee, unlimited amendment votes, and let's stand up for what we believe in. We have, whether in the majority or in the minority, here's the deal. You cannot, other than reconciliation, which is just basically the budget so far, you cannot pass a bill without 60 votes. So as long as we have more than 40 Republicans, there's not a bill that can pass without our consent. So we should act as a group. I'm not going to get everything I want. None of us get whatever we want. But if you get nothing, I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
So let me ask you about the filibuster. There is, obviously the Democrats say they're going to get rid of it. I've always had this sense that they don't necessarily have the votes to get rid of the filibuster. They want to get rid of it, and some of them say they want to get rid of it, knowing that you have Manchin and Sinema who will take all the shots from the left so that they don't have to get rid of it, because they saw what happened when Harry Reid got rid of it for judges. What's your sense of that dynamic?
They always talk like they're going to get rid of it. They always talk like they're going to make D.C. a state, stuff like that. I don't know. They haven't had the votes to do it yet. Sinema and Manchin stopped it last time. I can't imagine why you would do this to yourself, because then what's going to happen is we're going to get a majority. I think we'll get a majority this time. I think we have every reason to believe we'll get a majority. So then we're going to get everything we're done, and then so I'd be shocked. Why would you do that to yourself?
Right. I mean, particularly after what happened with judges.
In life you always think, people would act like logically in their own best interest. In politics, sometimes they don't seem to, but.
Right, that's very true.
But they logically they should. But every problem we have, none of these problems are insurmountable. Not one of them is insurmountable. But we're not balancing the budget, we're not fixing Medicare. You can fix Medicare without getting any benefits. By the way, so let me give you some numbers. Just make a wild guess. 330 million Americans, okay? How many Americans, 16 to 64, working age, 16 to 64, how many as a number do not have a job in this country? 100 million.
100 million.
100 million. What if 100 million people went back to work? When I left as governor of Florida, okay, when I got there, we were in a downturn. So I started January 2011. When I left January 2019, when I got there, a little less than 1 million people on unemployment. You know how many people on unemployment when I left? 61,000.
Good Lord.
We got people a job. We had 1.7 million jobs. We had to get this country back to work. We, in spending, let me tell you how, so if we had the same spending level as 2019, we'd have a surplus. We've had a 2% increase in our population and a 55% increase in spending in 5 years. Now, everybody wants to blame the president. Congress passes the spending. Congress passes all the spending. If you look at the number, and by the way, anybody that grew up in my era, the Soviet Union was horrible, they lied all the time, that's called your federal government. Everything is a lie. Everything is massaged. Everything is massaged. So the BLS puts out unemployment numbers. How many full-time jobs have been added in the last 12 months? We're adding a couple 100,000 a month, right? We lost. We've added part-time jobs. But they just say jobs, right? And then the number of people that have multiple jobs is going up. And there's 2 surveys, by the way. There's never been the spread. They put out a higher survey, the household survey, or the employer survey. The household survey is 9 million jobs less right now. Everything's massaged. Everything. It's just, look, do you guys all trust the Secret Service is going to put out all the information? I talked to the acting director, and I told him, I said, you will be part of conspiracy. I said, I just read a book last year called JFK Unspeakable. And if you read the book, then the CIA killed Kennedy. I don't know if they did or didn't, but here's what we know. How many of you trust the Secret Service or the FBI or Homeland Security to put out all the information?
None.
That's scary. Right?
So, first of all, you make my job easy because I can give you a topic and you run with it, and I love it. But you're on something that I've been talking about a lot on radio, that we have a crisis in this country of trust among the expert class. That, I'm sure you're familiar with the business anecdote that like the 3rd generation of a family business, oftentimes it runs it into the ground. And I say on my radio show, we're the 3rd generation of the bureaucracy from World War II. And this generation of bureaucracy just takes for granted that they're geniuses and they have no concept of what it took after World War II to rebuild it.
Nobody gets fired.
And nobody can trust what they say anymore because of it. They're condescending and wrong.
Everything is massaged. Everything. Now, if you, like on the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you can get into the detail. I put out an economic report to all of my Republican colleagues every 90 days. And I like all that stuff. I'm a business guy, so I like all that stuff. But they're like, okay, so take the Federal Reserve. So we had a downturn, remember, in 2007, 2008. How many people at the Federal Reserve? And by the way, there's 23,000 people work there to set interest rates. But anyway, how many people got fired? None. So Silicon Valley Bank just failed. How many people got fired? None. I talked to a Federal Reserve member that had to come back for a second nomination, and I asked her the second time, I said, do you feel bad that, the Silicon Valley Bank failed and you guys didn't know and stuff like that? Yeah. I said, so do you ask any questions? They told me not to. That's your federal government. So, you can't make this up, Eric. Everything. You could almost name an agency. The state, I could tell you, the same thing was going on when I became governor of Florida. Everything was, the stories are, you can't make this stuff up.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, it changed topics, but it's relevant to this. I've noticed a trend here in the last 2 days in conversations when China comes up that there actually is bipartisan buy-in that we have to do something. But we had a panel discussion this morning and they were talking about how deeply difficult it is to get the federal government to act on, everybody agrees there's a problem, but now groups are finding they've got to go to states and get the state legislatures to act because Congress and the bureaucracy are just moving slow.
Well, okay, so I'll just tell you how foolish this is. So I've been up there 5.5 years. So you just, before that I was business, then I was governor. So
had a full head of hair too 5 years ago.
But anyway, so you learn stuff, okay? So what percentage, 5 years ago, what percentage of drones bought by your federal government, including your military, were bought that were Chinese? 85%.
Good Lord.
Okay, so through the National Defense Authorization Act, it took me, I think, 2 years. I finally got the military couldn't do it. That was a fight. Okay, so finally last December I got your federal government. Now I've got, my next is that all new Chinese drones are not authorized in the country. That's what I'm working on now. So, but everything's a fight. So Rick Jackson here,
right.
So he's got the antibody. Do you see the Wall Street Journal article?
Yes.
So Rick was telling me about it. So I'm on the personnel committee for for Armed Services. So we had the guy that buys the drugs for the military. So I said, why do you buy Chinese drugs? I said, well, the regulations. I said, okay, name the regulation. There's none. Okay, so I did. I actually I couldn't get it outlawed, but we have a path to get it outlawed through this Armed Services Committee bill. So it's just like, why would we have to do that? They could do that on their own. So if you know that your enemy wants to kill you, right, you become dependent on them.
Right.
But first off, the biggest line of defense against China, you know who it is? It's you. Stop buying their stuff. Stop buying their stuff. So you have to be creative in this job. So since I've been up there, I've seen the Uyghurs, what they're doing, the Uyghurs, what they're stealing our jobs, blah, blah, the fentanyl and all that. So last September I said, okay, so the next time I do it, I got to get the American consumer to understand that Chinese products are bad for us, okay? So I have a lady, Robbie Saunders. She wakes up every day, and her job is to kill the Chinese economy. That's her whole job.
God bless you.
All right. So I said, come up with a product that we can talk about and how bad it is. Okay. Do you buy garlic?
Buy what?
Garlic.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. 70% of the garlic you buy is made in China. Guess how it's made? Sewer water. 70% market share, just so you know. So when it's finished, it's black. It's actually worse than sewer water. Just put that in your mind. All right? Black. They bleach it white. Then they use slaves to pull off the black petals. They cut off the root because they can't get that clean. So they have these nice, beautiful little white bulbs that you buy in a packet of 4 in your grocery store. All right? So my goal was I'm going to get out of all the grocery stores. So I think I've gotten out of all the national chains. We started like in November, other than Aldi's. Aldi still has it. All right? We've gotten rid of all the chains. So we're making progress, because if you understand that everything made in China.
Thank God, because I got to buy garlic tomorrow.
Okay, everything, here's the positive and the negative. Everything made in China is bad for you. There's nothing good for you made in China. But anyway, so we're making progress there, because we do have laws that require disclosure of where things are made in produce. Guess where we don't? Packaged goods. So I'll just give you a bad story. So there's a company, I live in Naples, Florida. There's a company just north of us in Fort Myers, and they had a very successful business making these little applesauce packets, for kids. Okay, it was made in Colombia. They imported it and they sold it. They're doing really well. Guess what they found? Guess what they found out? It's full of lead. Now, how's it full of lead? The Colombian company that put it together supposedly buys Chinese cinnamon. Again, they have 70% market share. Guess why it's got lead in? Lead weighs more than cinnamon. Cinnamon is sold based on lead. So they're killing our kids. Fortunately, they found it. But we all have to wake up about all this stuff. And then we the other thing, Eric, we don't have high enough standards for our elected. We just don't. We ought to have way higher standards. It's hard to govern. It really is. And it's totally different not to have to govern, right? It's a lot easier.
Right.
But we do have to have high standards, and then make people tell us why they can't get something done. That's why I tell my voters, this is what I'm going to try. If I can't get something done, I'll tell you what I'm doing. So,
let's talk about the election a little bit, because I agree with you. It looks like we've got just a heck of a lot of great recruits this year. We had Dave McCormick here. We had Sam Brown yesterday. Interestingly enough, I moved our event this week. Normally it would be next week, but Brian Kemp and I wanted to get Dave McCormick on stage so much because we both like him so much. And then I reached out to Sheehy and Hovde, and they're like, it's State Fair week, we can't come. So Sheehy and Hovde can't, but we've got great recruits in the Senate this year, and we've got West Virginia. It really does look like we should be able to get the Senate.
So it's 49-51. So Ted Cruz and I have the only hard races, and our races are totally different. His state is more Republican, but his opponent's raising more money than mine has so far. My primary, so I'll find out who my opponent is on August 20th in a week and a couple days. So anyway, if we work hard, we're going to win, and we're going to win West Virginia, 50-50. We get the White House, then we control the Senate. If we don't, we got to get to 51. Logically, Sheehy should win, right? Because Trump's going to win by 20 points in Montana. That's where I was with Trump yesterday in Montana. He's doing an event for Sheehy, so I want Sheehy to win. So I'm going to do anything I can for Sheehy. The other one, Bernie Moreno is a great candidate. Trump's going to win Ohio, 10 points? Then they're harder. But Trump, he has if he runs a good race, he's got to stay on message. That's easy for Trump.
It's very subtle there.
What's nice is he's a good listener. So, but anyway, Nevada, Sam Brown's a great candidate.
Great
what a
candidate.
background. Kerry Lake, if she runs a good race, that's a harder state, a little harder state than that. McCormick has every reason to believe. But the hard thing for Dave, he's a great candidate, is that he and Oz just beat the crap out of each other in the primary 2 years ago. So, but right now, at least the polls I see, Trump's up a little bit. So then the others we have shot, in Wisconsin and Michigan. Larry Hogan's a great candidate. Seems like that's going to be hard because what's happened is you got to get people split their tickets. So Harris will win Maryland by 20 points, even if it's just 15. It's hard to get people to split their tickets. It's way easier. Like for me, this is my first election. I've had 2 governor's races, a Senate race, where I'm on the same ticket as the president, and so they're at the top of the ticket. So they impact turnout, good or bad. So. But we should, you say worst case, we ought to get to 52, right?
Right.
Then we got to govern.
So, because I heard the reaction when you said Maryland, let me ask you about that, the importance of getting the majority, but then also sometimes to get the majority, you do have to have candidates who are Republicans but don't necessarily share your or my values. So how do you balance that? You want the majority, but then also you can be a Republican and filibuster Republican legislation.
I support all Republicans. The way you have to look at it is it's a team sport. By the way, if you want to win a statewide race, you know what the best way to do? Win every local race, because you're going to get all those votes, right? So when I go, I've already been to every county in Florida in the last 8 months, and I've got an event tonight, a big event in the Villages in Florida, and every Republican there, I highlight. I love all the Republicans because I want them to win, even though some of them, I cut taxes as governor 100 times. Was my legislature really excited about cutting taxes? Maybe not as much as I was. Were they as excited about cutting regulation? Maybe not. But I still like all of them, because they voted for most of my stuff. So I think we have to try to get as many votes as we can, because you've got to be in the majority.
You mentioned the Villages. I'm on the radio down there, and my gosh, do I get emails a lot of times from people in the Villages, and they love you.
Yeah. You should, if you want to look at the American Dream, 40 years, maybe 42 years ago, I'll tell you a cute story about the Villages. 42 years ago, a guy by the name of Gary Morris came down there, now with a lot of money. It's an hour and a half north of Orlando, bought some orange groves and started selling manufactured homes. Okay? 2010, I run in the primary. As Eric said, nobody helped me in the primary. Gary was on the other side of that deal. But after the primary, I went to see him to ask for money. So I went there, and here's how Florida was running at the time. I went there, 92,000 people lived there. I said, how much land do you have? He says, I have enough land for 101,000 people. I said, there's a lot of land here. Are you buying any more? No, there's a statewide ban. It's at 92,000, it's the most successful real estate development in the world, residential real estate in the world. The state wouldn't let them expand. It's like this.
Wow.
And the guy that was doing, Eric, the guy who was doing it, Tom Pelham, he's a state worker, he attacked me my whole race. Right. And so anyway, so today now I got rid of the agency and I got rid of that guy. And so now there's 160,000 people live there. They have, they were going to be out of business in 4 years, and they have enough land for 300,000 people. And guess what? They vote Republican.
It is a great development. It really is.
It really is. Have you done events?
Yeah, they want me to come down there and do one, and I've got to come down there. I've got several people they email all the time. When are you coming?
So. Oh no, you should go down there. It's a ball.
Yeah.
And a guy by the name of Gary Lester runs it day to day, and they'll have a big. They have 3 downtowns, and everybody's in a golf cart, and so they'll have you just host it outside, and you could have 5,000 people there.
Wow.
So you should actually go. You should go do that.
I should. Okay, before you get out of here, I want to ask you, future, if we get the Senate, the House, we get the trifecta, what's the number one thing you hope Congress pushes?
Well, the thing that's going to impact us the longest is going to be the budget. So it's probably, you could argue the border. So it's either the border or the budget. But we have to secure the border, and we have to balance the budget. You guys probably balance your budget, right? Shocking. I mean, you know how you balance the budget? This is what we're going to collect. This is what we're going to spend. Not that hard. Florida had not balanced its budget for 20 years when I became governor. So I didn't know anything about state budget. So I started going, so I had to do a budget within like 30 days after I won. So I started sitting down, they tell me about the budget, and I say, okay, what our revenues are gonna be? I said, that's how much our expense is gonna be. Like you're crazy. So my family had lots of problems growing up, and so they'd say, well, we have a program for this. I said, my family had that problem. We don't need any money. Their eyes would get like that. We balanced the budget.
It's amazing.
$70 billion.
Senator Scott, this has been one of the most fun conversations I've had in a while.
Well, thanks for what you do, and thanks, by the way, thank you for your voice, because if it wasn't for you and other people like you, we wouldn't be winning. People want to say, and the mainstream media is bad. It is. But guess what? How many people are on radio, okay, and on local TV saying the right things? They are. Our message resonates with everybody.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming here.
Thanks, Eric.
Gosh, this was fun.
This is fun.
Thank you so much.
This is fun.
Have fun tonight. I will come down to the village.
I've learned a lot. Yeah, you got my cell. So
Yeah.
if you're going to come, if I can come there and talk about you, highlight you, I will.
I'll totally do that.
Okay.
Thank you very
bye.
much.
See you guys.